Uh, Welcome back to the UNNI Podcast. I'm your host, Bianca McCall, and we're in the stew. We in the stew, and I cannot tell you how excited I get every time I get to come into GTV Radio Studio and meet with some amazing people doing amazing things in their communities, for themselves, for their families, and really just surviving. And so I'm also excited because I get to welcome back a good friend of mine, Anthony, coming back to the UNNI Podcast. And I say welcome back because we actually just recently spent some time chopping it up, doing what everybody's doing out there. We were on Zoom, clicking links and I don't know how everybody else feels, but Zoom, it's kind of gotten to this point where it's like, we got another Zoom meeting, or you know what I mean? And I'm only getting ready, waist up and stuff like that, and waist down. I look crazy, and I'm like, man, I hope I don't have to get up and get something. And, so I wanted to run this back where I was like ready to go from toe to head to toe, no Zoom. Let's get out of these virtual meetings. Let's do this in person, get down to GTV Radio. So thank you to DJ Prenup, GTV Radio, for making this possible for today. Thank you to Anthony for joining me again. Cannot wait to get back into this conversation. Anthony, if you will, introduce yourself to the UNI audience and tell a little bit about who you are, where you come from, what brings you here.
Hey guys, my name's Anthony Ray Official on Instagram. I filmed with her the other week, like she said, and we had a great conversation. And there's like a lot of knowledge that we want to drop on you and help you guys get through some things that helped me get through my mental illness and things that I was dealing with. But I'm originally from California.
Yeah.
I was a celebrity wardrobe stylist out there. Then I transferred out here to Nevada, and I'm currently doing my own clothing line and soon to launch a adult fantasy store online as well. So be on the lookout for that. That's going to be on theswearword.com. But I'm excited to film with you and be able to get the awareness out there and help some people.
That's awesome. So, in case you didn't catch all of that, because just super saucy to start, right? We're going to talk about drugs, sex, rock and roll, fashion. All the major topics, right, to keep our attention. But this is going to be like the meeting of two rock stars, man. And I say I'm a rock star only because, like I said, we in the stew, anytime we get a microphone, I get to GTV Radio, I start feeling like MC Red Dot, so that's my rock star persona. But you coming from like just real life experience, being a celebrity stylist, to be in that space, to be in that world, can you just share a little bit about like, what is that like? What is that like on the mental, on the body, on the spiritual, like just being in celebrity worlds?
You know what? You get to work with a lot of cool people and get to know a lot of people for who they are, not who they post to be.
Yeah.
But it's really cool. It does take a lot on your mental health though, because you're working with people with high end clothing and apparel. So with like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Chanel. When you're working with those people, you kind of feel like you have to dress the part and you have to wear those as well.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, once I started with my clothing line and I started seeing what wholesale was versus resale, I don't buy designer things anymore. So anything that I do have designer was gifted to me from a friend.
Yeah.
So the other day I was putting clothes away and I seen like, okay, I got Calvin Klein, Michael Kors and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, like my good friends actually gifted this to me. Like none of this I purchased because I don't see myself spending all that money to look good for someone else and not feel good myself.
Right.
And being in that industry, it kind of works with your works on your mental health and drives you a little crazy because you're working nonstop. A lot of things are last minute. So when things are last minute, you are kind of like going crazy, like, oh, I got to get here, I got to get this, I don't have that. And it's it really works on you. It really works on your mental health. So I feel like a lot of my mental illness did come from working in the industry because I felt like I had to hold up a certain image in order for me to even leave my house.
Right.
I couldn't even go to the market without getting dressed or doing my hair. So it got to a point where I cut off all my hair. I stopped wearing my designer shoes and only wore one pair of shoes with all my outfits and kind of humbled myself because I felt like I had to be up here where the celebrities were when in reality, I'm not making what the celebrities are to hold up that image.
Right, right. Well, it's so funny that you're talking about this type of stuff because I feel like you're describing 99% of America right now,
Right.
trying to live up to what we see as being like the ballers. You know what I mean? Like we see them on TV, we see celebrities and influencers dressed a certain way, carry themselves a certain way, definitely with all the brands and all that. And so a lot of us are trying to keep up with the Joneses, is what my pops used to tell me. You know, we're trying to keep up with this image or this portrayal of what making it is, but we don't have the money for that. You know what I mean? And it's eating away at our mental health or our mental wellness. You know what I mean? Because who knows what we're doing in order to try to keep up, you know? And so even without being a celebrity stylist, that's automatically something that I think a lot of us can relate to is what's the level of anxiety and just your self-image, self-perception, you know what I mean? Like how much damage is done when you are constantly trying to keep up, you know?
Yeah, and I kind of had to tell myself, like, I had to remind myself that my family and friends love me for who I am, not what I look like. So that kind of put me back in a space to where I can humble myself, where I can be myself. I didn't have to hold up this image anymore. I can be 100% who I was.
Right, right.
And that definitely helped me out a lot.
Yeah. Gosh, so can you tell me, how did you even get into that business? You know what I mean? What makes somebody want to get into the fashion industry and even further dress or style celebrities?
To be honest, I kind of was pulled into the industry.
Okay.
It wasn't something that I thought I would ever be doing, but one of my close friends, she's a celebrity makeup artist. And back then in 2016, I had launched a clothing line, and she was doing the makeup for all my models and everything. And then she started telling her celebrity friends that I'm a stylist. When not one day had I styled anybody but myself.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just started working with her friends and started to styling her friends. And then they started referring me to other people. And that's kind of how I got into it.
Okay. Okay. So going back to that moment where your friend just put you on game, was like, you're a stylist. What did you go through? Like just mentally, emotionally, like how did you prepare for that first celebrity that you styled? And what was the reaction when they liked it and they started referring you out?
To be honest, when I first started working with these celebrity stylists, becoming a celebrity stylist, my first celebrity that I had styled was a friend of a friend. And I've never done it, so I had so much anxiety. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if they were going to like what I picked out. And it's kind of hard because with me, I style based off emotion and how I'm feeling. And for me to style somebody based off their body type and what they're comfortable with, it was a completely different story.
Right, right.
And I was like, okay, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of anxiety. It was a lot of pressure. But at the end of the day, I made some really good friends who have helped me through a lot with my mental illness because they have experienced like anxiety and depression being in the industry from all the pressure that's put on them. And so they kind of helped me with understanding what I was going through and what triggers a lot of my anxiety and depression.
Right, right. Okay, and so you've talked about this, and you've come out and you've said, you know what, I live with battles with mental health and have lived with illness before, and you talk about depression and anxiety and things like that. Where do you believe that stems from?
To be honest, when I was about 20, 26, 25, that's when I started feeling these symptoms.
Okay.
I know I always dealt with them, but I never dealt with them.
Yeah, yeah.
So once I started to feel these emotions, I didn't know what I was going through. There were times where I would cry for no reason, and I would tell my partner, "I need help. Like, help me. Like, I need help."
Yeah.
But I didn't know what kind of help I needed, and he didn't know what kind of help I needed either. So it was kind of hard for him to understand what I was going through because it's something that neither of us experienced.
Right.
And so I started working for this company, and the company recommended me to go see this counselor through our employee assistant program.
Cool.
And once I started seeing this counselor, she kind of dug deep, and she went back into my childhood. And she kind of brought up how I was raised. And I didn't realize how much stuff was coming from my childhood because it was normal to me. That was the normal that I grew up in, and nobody should have had to be raised that way or grow up that way. And for me to understand that the way I was raised is not okay, no child my age should have to go through that, kind of made me understand a lot of my trauma was coming from my childhood. And a lot of people like myself thought that depression was something that you're dealing with that day or whatever's going on that month.
Right.
And it's not. It's a lot of it was from my past. And when she dug deep, I realized that a lot of drinking comes from my uncles, my aunts, my grandparents. Like, that's where I became like an alcoholic. And there was one point where I was drinking like 10 months straight every day. And I didn't see it as a problem because I felt like as if I was drinking, it was because I was having a good time. I was hanging out with friends. And I didn't see it as if I had a problem.
Right, right.
But then once I stopped drinking, that's when the next day after I stopped drinking was when I started feeling my anxiety and my depression. And I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what this is. And I realized that alcohol was a big factor in my mental illness.
Got you. And so I want to back up because there's some pretty remarkable things that occurred in your survivor journey as you're describing it. So the very first thing is you noticed that you were having a problem. Your employer had an EAP, assistance program, the employer assistance program, and the very first remarkable thing on that journey is that you decided to actually go. Because I know for a lot of us that are in the workforce, there are EAP programs, and I mean, you're like, man, get out of here. I'm not going to talk to nobody. You know what I mean? And another thing too is, will you share, what's your ethnicity? What's your ethnic background?
So I'm Mexican American.
Okay. And so, and I'm just like, I'm guessing from another person of color, like going in and talking to a therapist about family and what you're talking about, transgenerational issues like alcoholism. That's not something that in my family, was looked upon as like, oh yeah, go talk to this person or this lady or the man or whomever you want to say about our issues or what's going on in our household. Was that a similar experience to what you went through, or was everybody just like, yeah, go, you need to go?
To be honest, at this point, I was all alone out here in Nevada.
Okay.
It was just me and my partner.
Okay.
And my best friend, she lived all the way on the other side of town. And so I didn't have nobody out here when I moved out here. My grandmother had just passed away a few months before I moved out here. And so when my grandmother passed away, that's when I went into that deep depression.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have nobody to lean on. So I was like, why not go speak to somebody that I don't know, that knows nothing about me? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? everything's confidential, so she can't go tell anybody
Right.
what I told her.
Right.
And so I kind of went to speak to her, and at first my partner was hesitant about it because he thought that she was going to turn him on me. I mean, turn me on him, I
Yeah.
should say.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's not the case. Like, my mental health counselor, she didn't tell me anything to do.
Yeah.
She asked me questions and made me understand what I was going through, or what were the triggers that were putting me in those situations. And so I kind of, when I started going, I started coming back, and I started telling my partner about my experience and letting him know what she helped me with.
Right. Right.
And when I would do that, I would bring it back to him. And even though he didn't go, he was able to help out his mother with a lot of things, because, like you said, it's generational trauma that's
Yeah.
passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, when I was younger, I thought that was the normal.
Right.
And so did he. He thought that was the way that they were supposed to live. But it's not normal. And but it was normal to you at that time.
Right. Right.
And so he started understanding his childhood traumas, and he started helping his mom with understanding a lot of things that she's going through, because she's never dealt with it either. And so for me to be able to go seek this help and to talk to somebody about it, and for them to be able to help somebody else by listening to me, it was rewarding for me. So I'm like, even though people don't want to go get the help from a professional, or maybe people can't afford it, or they don't have it in their insurance,
Right. Right.
you can always reach out to a friend. It's never too late. Reach out to the person that you trust the most,
Yeah.
and talk to that person.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people hold everything in. And I always told my partner is, I don't know what you're feeling if you don't tell me.
Right.
So I can't fix anything or work on anything if you don't tell me what's bothering you.
Right.
And it was kind of the same with him, as he was dealing with a lot that he didn't understand.
Yeah.
And just me getting that help helped him out a lot, and it kind of opened his eyes. And he was in the same position, like you said, being a person of color. People don't want to go tell their business, because we're taught to keep whatever's in our house between our house. That is nobody's business.
Right. Right.
And for me to be able to help, like, it's just rewarding. And being a person of color, we don't go seek help.
Right.
And just for me to go seek help and be able to help a lot of my friends that I never knew were dealing with this, because they never talked to me until I opened up about my mental illness. I had to let them know it's okay to not be okay.
Right.
It's okay
Right.
to not be okay. And once I started opening up and talking about my journey and helping me get through what I was going through by seeking help, other people started reaching out to me. And like I said, I would have never known they went through that.
Yeah.
And they never opened up to me, because at this age, you can't trust people nowadays. People are going to spread your business or whatever. So I definitely recommend seeking the help. That was probably the best thing I could have ever done.
So I hear you saying that it improved your relationship because you guys were able to communicate, and then you were also able to, that's when you started to begin dropping that knowledge, you know what I mean, and share some of the things that helped you to heal some childhood traumas. And I hear how it's improved your non-romantic relationships. And is that because you got some confidence to start sharing your story, or how did they notice, these changes in you, or how did that come to be to where you assumed this position of being able to help those around you?
It was just spreading awareness.
Okay.
I just started spreading awareness, spreading like what can help in similar situations that I was going through, or things that helped me, because I never knew what I was dealing with.
Right.
And for me to spread this awareness and have other people be aware of what's going on, or how to deal with somebody with a mental illness, was just my way of doing my good deed for the day, I would say. because a lot of people don't know what they're going through. And once I spread that awareness to these people, they were able to come tell me like, hey, you know what, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Or, you know what, this really helped me work on my relationship, because I felt I felt depression and I felt anxiety, but I didn't know what it was.
Right, right.
And just for me to explain to people, there's not one anxiety and there's not one depression. There's multiple anxieties. There's social anxiety. There's so many different symptoms that people have, and anxiety and depression are not all the same.
Right, right.
And so for me to educate my partner on that and be able to educate my following on that, it just was how would I say it? Like, it was a rewarding for me to be able to speak to these people and let them know that what I'm going through and show them a vulnerable side of me, because like I said, social media is what people post to be. It's not who they really are.
Right.
So I wanted my audience to know who I am and what I struggle with, and to be able to help them. So it's just something that I got into to help myself.
Yeah.
And if I can help others, might as well share the knowledge as well.
So when you say spread awareness, that means that you're online or like going live and that sort of thing, and just bringing up conversations or sharing, your history and inviting others to join in that conversation.
Right. Like kind of like we're doing right now. Like a lot of people don't know my story. And right now we're telling them my story because people may have went through similar situations. And if my story can reach them and help that one person, then I know I did my job.
Yeah, yeah. And so, speaking of the story, because I don't want to tiptoe around it. I don't want to leave it kind of in the past. And I know that you and I have had previous conversations about, what those childhood traumas were and or are, and how you've been able to manage and triumph over them. Would you share a little bit about, kind of those conversations? Growing up Mexican American, grew up with your mom, right? And you share a little bit about your family kind of history.
Yeah, so I grew up with my mother until I was about 10 years old. My father's been in jail my whole life. He's still there. And at the age of 10, I had lost my mother. And we were living in a home that my grandmother owned that she had purchased for my mom and my dad before he went to jail. And once my mom passed away, my grandmother kind of kicked us out of that house, leaving us with nowhere to go. I'm the youngest of 6. And so my oldest sister, she was in her mid-20s, maybe 25 at that time. She had 2 children of her own that she was raising. And once my mother passed away and my grandmother kicked us out, like, I couldn't grab no clothes. I couldn't grab nothing from my house. We just kind of had to get up and get out.
Wow.
And so when I moved with my sister at the age of 10 years old, she was 25. It was me, my brother, and my other sister living with her. And so at that age, I didn't know what was going on. School offered me counseling and everything, and I didn't feel like I needed that help. I felt like it was just something that we deal with every day. And I never got the help. And then as I got older, maybe I would say when I was 20, my dad, he would call me, and the only time he would call me was to ask me for money. And so at that point, I told him, if you're going to call me and ask me for money, don't call me at all. And it's been 9 years since I talked to that man.
Wow.
And he'll ask my sister how we're doing and everything, but he won't reach out to his children.
Yeah.
And that kind of brought me back to when I went to counseling, and my mental health therapist, she was letting me know, like, a lot of my trauma had to be from my dad because at a young age, I was about 5 years old. And I remember sneaking drugs into the jail for my dad. And at that point, it made me realize as I got older, as I was younger, I didn't know what I was doing. As I got older, I started to realize what I was doing at that age. And for me to sneak in drugs, like with my mom, like that's my only parent I have. And you're having her come over here to sneak in drugs for you, and she can be in the same position as you and lose all of her kids. That made me realize, did you ever love my mom? Or did you love what she did for you? Because there's two different things.
Yeah.
And at a young age, when my dad was in jail, my mom, she wanted to have relationships with other people. But being a child at that age, we only wanted her to be with my father. So when my mom tried to have a boyfriend, my sister, she would bust out his windows. She took a battery out of my dad's truck. She's smaller than me.
Yeah.
She's older by a few years, but she took a battery out of my dad's truck and threw it through that man's window. And then my other sister ended up fighting him and like hurting him, so he had to leave or whatever. And I realized that we were stopping my mother's happiness for our own. But growing up, we realized my mother was never happy because whenever my dad would call, she would be crying. And anytime we would see her crying on the phone, we'll go and unplug the phone because we didn't want to see our mom crying.
Yeah.
And for him to think that my mom was made of money, like we grew up really poor because my mom was supporting this man in jail.
Yeah.
And all my mom's money was going to her husband in jail, and he thought because he was giving her drugs to sell that she was making really good money. But she's raising 6 children.
Yeah.
She don't have no money
Yeah.
to be driving all the way across state just to see you and then have to put gas, pay for food for us to go. Like, she don't have that money. So we grew up really poor. There were times where our lights got shut off. We were sleeping with heat blankets because it was really cold. And my dad, he never knew what we had to go through because he was taking the easy way out. And when my mom died, my dad, he didn't try to get out to raise his children. Instead, he added more time onto his sentence. And I'm like, okay, do you really love your kids like you say you do? Because none of your actions are showing me.
Right.
And it was kind of hard growing up, like not having any parents. Like I kind of raised myself with the guidance of my sister from the age of 10 years old. And dealing with mental illness and having to understand where it came from or what triggers it is kind of eye-opening because a lot of things that you go through, you don't realize you should have never had to go through it. And once you get that help and once you understand what you went through and once you understand where this trauma's coming from, it makes it a little easier for you to control it. So I don't know. That's a little of my background. But my grandparents, like my uncles, they were alcoholics and drug addicts, and they all lived in my grandmother's home. My grandma had a house in the front, and then she had an apartment built on her garage. And so her kids lived in her house or in the back. And so growing up poor, I realized, like, we didn't have much. We were playing in the backyard with tomato cans, empty tomato cans and washers, throwing them across the yard into these little holes because we didn't have any money for toys. And so I think that's where a lot of my creativity comes from with my fashion is I was that poor kid. I wasn't able to afford new clothes. So I had to create my own stuff. And now that my two older brothers, they're in jail as well. But one of them, he's in a halfway house getting ready to get out. And I talk to him every day. And I think that's where I get my creativity from is because he is really creative. Like, he'll make anything out of nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I seen him, when he was in jail, his cellmate got some birds that had fell out the tree or whatever, and my brother made a bird cage out of paper. He rolled up the paper really tight, and then he used one of those the mesh laundry baskets, and he built like a whole cage and everything.
Wow.
And like with my fashion, when I'm doing things now, he kind of gives me his input and helps me out and helps me perfect my craft. And so, I mean, that's a little about my background. Like, my brothers were in jail. He got my mom, from him giving my mom those drugs, he got my mom hooked on these drugs.
Yeah.
And so once my mom got hooked on these drugs, she was heavily drinking and she was doing these drugs, and it wasn't good on her liver. Like, she had gallstones, and that's how she passed away, from her gallstones. And just seeing like all the things that my dad had done while he's in jail.
Right.
I mean, he's never been around us to raise us, and to see what he's done while he's been in jail makes me realize, how would I have been raised if this man would have raised me? Because he hasn't taught me nothing good.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, I mean, damn. Just everything that you've survived, it's so much, and there's so many different things, so many different reasons why you shouldn't be here, or why you should be depressed, or why you should be anxious, whether it be the system or drugs and alcohol, the family separation. All these things were setups for failure. But you didn't fail. You are still here, and you're thriving and doing amazing things to help others. And as you're telling your story, I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, when you have nothing, you know, when you're at that point, whatever everybody's rock bottom looks like, you know, when they feel like they have nothing or no option or no hope, right? You never have nothing, because you always have that decision point where it's either you're going to destroy or you're going to create. You know, you're going to destroy, you're going to self-destruct, you're going to destroy relationships, you're going to, you know, you can either destroy or create, get creative, make something out of nothing. And your story, to me, it inspires me, because I just see where you've been able to, or you've made the choice to create, you know, out of that. And also, speaking of your brother being very creative, I don't know how you did that. Like, I'm trying to wrap my mind around, you know, if we're talking to a family or a young man, a young boy, you know, that's listening to the podcast, that's in a similar situation, one or two of the parents are incarcerated, or dead. You know, there's such a high percentage of children in America that lose their parents at such a young age, and they just go into a system, you know, become orphans, or family members, you know, bring them into their homes, but they're still treated so poorly, and they're living in poverty, and there's not any resources for that type of kinship care. You know what I mean? It's not like grandmothers or your sister gets extra income because she's taking care of her siblings. No, like, they just kind of get swept under the rug, you know? So many children in this country still today. And again, it's a setup for failure. So speaking to those children that are out there, speaking to those young people, speaking to those grandmothers, aunts, cousins, sisters that are raising, you know, young people in their homes, what do you tell them to keep them, you know, motivated, inspired, and thriving? How do they live? How do they survive? How do they create out of those types of circumstances?
Ooh, that's a tough one. But what I would have to say is, never lose sight of who you are. Like, always be true to yourself. Even if other people don't accept who you are, that means you're just hanging around the wrong people. So what I did, me being in a young age, I seen my father and my brothers being in jail, like in and out of jail. And my oldest brother, I see him in and out of jail, kind of like my dad, and I see his children um, at the age that I was when my dad was in jail, and I just don't want that for his children.
Yeah.
But you can't change people.
Right.
You have to change what you want out of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I didn't want to be like that. So I kind of changed who I hung around with.
Yeah.
I hung out with the people who were higher class than me. Even though I didn't know anything about like sushi or anything like that.
Yeah.
One of my friends, she lived in a really rich area. Her parents were wealthy, and like she lived next door to like a producer and everything. And so I was hanging around with her. She became my really good friend. She didn't care that I was poor.
Yeah.
She liked me for who I was. And she would take me to these fancy parties, and she would teach me how to act around certain people. And so once I was able to hang out with the poor and hang out with the rich, and I was able to be myself, I started to realize these people don't care about your wealth or what you look like. These people care about genuine people. And so I just kind of started surrounding myself around more people who were into the same things that I were, are more creative people to show me their talents.
Yeah.
Like one of my friends, like I said, the celebrity makeup artist, she taught me how to do eyelash extensions. And she didn't have to teach me that, but she wants to make sure that I'm good no matter what. And as long as you have talent, or as long as you are creative and can build something out of nothing, nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah.
So you have to understand, everybody loses a job every day, but nobody can take your creativity away from you. Nobody can take your talents away from you. So I say stick with those and really master your craft and get to surround yourself with positive people who build you up. I mean, I had to set a lot of boundaries.
Yeah.
I learned that in my counseling sessions, that I had to learn to set boundaries. And with me setting boundaries, I was able to cut out a lot of toxic people.
Yeah.
Because I realized a lot of people will take what you have to offer, but they're not willing to give back. And with me, I'm not the type of person to expect anything in return. But I'm not going to sit here and let you take advantage of me.
Right. Right.
So once I started setting those boundaries, I mean, those toxic people kind of weeded themselves off.
Right.
Because I would let them know, you know what, I'm not going that way. You're going to have to find a way on your own. And once they had to start figuring stuff out on their own, I stopped enabling them.
Right.
Like I was no longer enabling these people. And once I started setting these boundaries, I started to see these people grow. And it's like, if you feel like you're losing somebody, don't feel that way, because somebody always comes into your life at a certain point for a certain reason. So don't block your blessings. Let people come into your life, get to know these people. And I say just build off of that. Just don't let anybody take what you have to offer because you're scared of offering it. I mean, you've lost what? You lost a parent, you lost your guardian. Like, what more can you lose at this point? I mean, you won't lose if you don't try.
Yeah.
And
I love it. A lot of what you're saying is consistent with just the idea that, you know, it's all about your abilities to succeed in life or through any situation is all about your own decision point to be creative rather than destructive. And then it's who you surround yourself by. Because if you're surrounding yourself by people that are takers and destroyers, then you might find yourself still in the same situation, not able to get out. You know what I mean? Losing hope, right? But if you surround yourself by people that are supportive or going to contribute, you know, in a positive way, or that can connect with you based on, like, have a real genuine connection, not based on, money and material things, then you see yourself almost growing into that role or position, especially if you're surrounding yourself by people that are achieving greater things in the areas that you're passionate about, right? So, like, I'm thinking from owning Desert Rose Counseling Group, I had one of my mentors tell me a long time ago, you want to surround yourself by people that are great in business, that are wealthy, that are smarter than you. Because if you're the smartest person in the room, there's a problem. You're not going to grow, But if you challenge yourself and you put yourselves in the room with people that have successful businesses, people that, if your goal is to earn money, people that are wealthy, not rich and certainly not hood rich, you know what I mean? But people that have mastered these areas that you're passionate about, then you're going to be challenged to grow, in those areas. And so that's what I'm hearing you say has been your formula for success is always leaving that room or creating that room to grow and to excel. You're in a position now to be a celebrity stylist because that's who you're surrounding yourself by. You're surrounding yourself by, celebrity makeup and you're you don't have to get ready because you're already ready. You're already, looking and walking and learning the part, you know what I mean? And I think that's again, and I'm going to relate it to, people of color just because, that's where I come from. But again, these are challenges that I think that, we faced in Black and brown communities is anytime we try to, surround ourselves by something that we perceive as greater or higher achieving, then it's, oh, you sold out, or you're trying to be something, you're trying to be white, or you're trying to be something that you're not. And so there's so much like stigma around trying to do better for yourself, I think, especially in like Black and brown communities. What do you think about that?
You know what? I'm glad you brought up that point because at the turning point in my life when I was trying to transition from being this poor hood rich kid to being my own person, when I wanted to see who I was as a person, and I started to branch off and hang out with a new crowd. And like you said, people said you're a sellout, or they would always tell me like you're really bougie, like now or whatever. And I was like, I'm not bougie. I'm just not gonna sit here and settle for what I've been settling for my whole life. And so I had to let them know, like, you know what? I'm doing this because I want to better my life, not because I want to show off. And once I started telling my family members that, because my family members were the biggest ones who critiqued me, because at that point I wasn't out. I was still dating men and women at that time. Wow. But my family only knew I was dating women. They always knew that I liked men, but they would never ask me. They wanted me to tell them. Yeah. So at one point, like, my sister would ask me, because my ex always had my car. Like, he put new tires on my car. He paid my registration. Like, he was just taking care of me. And my sister told me is that your boyfriend? And then at that point, I was like, yeah. I mean, at that point, all she was waiting for me was to tell her yeah.
Yeah. How old were you when that happened?
I was maybe 19, 20 when that happened.
So on top of everything that you've gone through, add coming out as a gay man to that equation. And I'm just like, man, I'm over here just like, man, how are you sitting right here, like smiling, looking great, doing great. So yeah, so that happened at 19. And what was that process like for you?
To be honest, at that age, I was never home. I never wanted to be home. I was living with my best friend through high school. Yeah. I mean, I had my own car and everything my freshman year.
You're a grown man at 10, at this point. So, yeah.
So my freshman year, I had my own car. I mean, I had to drop my nephew off at school, pick him up. And, like, at that point, not only was I trying to raise myself, but I was trying to raise another child that wasn't mine. but that just prepared me for my future.
Yeah.
And I had to realize, like, everything that I went through only made me stronger. Only made me stronger. I know a lot of the things that I went through broke me down with my mental illness.
Yeah.
But like you said, I don't know how I'm here either, because there would be times when I would just sit in the mirror and look at myself and just cry and ask myself, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? I didn't know I had a purpose. And as I got older and I started crying for no reason, and my friends would always tell me they love me. And I'm like, what do you love about me when I don't know what I love about myself?
Right, right.
And so I kind of had to find that self-love in order for me to grow and be a better person. But
do you feel like you have a purpose today?
Today I do. Today, now, how old was I? Maybe 11, 12, right after my mother passed away. I felt like I had no purpose, but I was a child at that age. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to work or you have to make money. I mean, in high school, I was working 2 jobs.
Wow.
And still going to school full time. And it's not because I had to pay for everything that I wanted, but it was because I never wanted to be home. I just felt like I was a burden at that home. I didn't feel like I was welcome there. Like, I mean, my sister and then they took me in. I mean, they didn't mistreat me or anything like that, but I just feel like I was a burden on them. I just feel like I was a child just dropped off on their door.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to just be another kid in the house. Like, I was always out. And me and my brother-in-law, we had got into it when I was about 19, 20. And I didn't realize at that point that they were losing their house. They never told me anything. So, I mean, I'm working 2 jobs. If you told me something, I'll be more than happy to contribute.
Yeah.
But you never told me nothing until it got to the point where you're like, okay, you either give me this money at the end of the week or you get your shit and get out. Excuse my language. But,
That's real.
Yeah. But so I grabbed all my stuff that day. I packed my car. I didn't have nowhere to go. I didn't know where I was going, but I packed my car and I was going somewhere.
Yeah.
And I ended up at my partner's house. We've been together almost 10 years now.
Wow.
And at that point, like, he was doing what he had to do in order for him to survive. He lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. He was renting out his room and the living room to somebody. That way, because he was never there either.
Yeah.
And it's just what you have to do to get by.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what you're going through now isn't your destination. So you have to understand that all the pain and stuff that you're going through now is only going to make you stronger for what's coming up.
And when you say that you know what your purpose is today, what is that purpose?
To spread awareness on mental illness, like, because not a lot of people know what they're going through and not a lot of people know where to seek help.
Yeah.
I know for me, I didn't know where to seek help. If it wasn't for my job, I'd still be searching. I mean, I was on the internet looking up like therapists or whatever, but when you're looking up therapists, there's so many different therapists.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm looking for. And I didn't know what I was going through, so I didn't know what I needed help with.
Right.
And so, I mean, now that I understand what I'm going through, my purpose is to share resources. Share resources where they can get help. Because if I was going through what I was at 25, at the age of 11, I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know where to seek help. My partner didn't know where to seek help. And it's a discussion that a lot of people don't talk about. So I want to spread awareness and let people know it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to feel this way.
Right, right. Do you have some of those resources in mind to be able to share with the audience? Just where can they go if they are, struggling with some things and it may be linked to childhood trauma or, something that's been going on for a while? You said you just did an internet search. Where do you go? What domain or what, how do you find a therapist? How do you find help?
To be honest, that's what I struggled with. I didn't know where to find it.
Yeah.
I found help through my work.
Okay.
Ask your job if there's an employee assistant program.
Okay.
Reach out to the employee assistant program.
Mm-hmm.
Let them know, hey, you know what, I'm going through this. I would love to speak to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Because those employee assistant programs don't only help with mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
They help with counseling for marriages,
Mm-hmm.
marriage counseling and all that. So there's a lot of resources they can reach through their job.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a job, if you're in foster care, you can always reach out to your oh my gosh.
I know, like the caseworkers or the counties.
Yeah,
and
reach
stuff.
out to your caseworker. Reach out to your caseworker. Let them know, hey, you know what? I think I need a little help, and get on the right meds. Because I know when I was going through it, I was trying whatever meds they gave me.
Yeah.
Some meds would make me like zone out, where I'd physically be here and you'll be speaking to me, and then you're just staring at me waiting for a reply because my mind is absent.
Right.
And so I would say just reach out to those mental health counselors. Reach out through your work, your caseworker. There's suicide hotlines that you can look up. So if you're feeling any type of mental illness, you can always reach out to somebody you know or who's closest to you, and let them know how you're feeling, because a lot of times we don't know what you're feeling. So what you have to do is you have to set those boundaries and let people know that it's not okay to treat me this way.
Yeah.
It's not okay. And once you set those boundaries, you'll have a better life. Like, you'll live so much more comfortably.
Yeah, boundary setting is actually it's useful with so many different like ailments and illnesses. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's like everything in moderation. You know, but anytime that you're completely sacrificing your needs and your wants for something or someone else, you know, a quick change of the boundaries is definitely useful. I also want to mention, for anybody who's listening, maybe you're not in foster care, maybe you're not currently, you know, in crisis or anything like that, or but you want to get involved and you want to help. You know, something at the UNNI Podcast that we're constantly talking about is the ability to reach in, you know? So when it's hard for somebody to reach out, when it's hard for somebody to find the words or expressions to say, I'm not okay, then there's also the responsibility of communities, you know, where we need to reach in and be able to connect people, put ourselves in the position to where we're confident and competent to link people to resources. And so if you're one of those people that's wondering how to get involved, I would recommend doing something very similar to what Anthony's saying is get online, look at different programs that are out there, nonprofits in your area that are working with foster care youth, foster care families. Kinship care is what we talked about. And for those of you who are unsure about that definition, kinship care is when a family member brings in a child, kind of like foster care, but it's an actual family member that's taking care of them. And kinship families have less resources than foster care families. Foster care families is through the county systems, right? But kinship care, you know, like I was saying, your sister didn't get extra income, extra food, or any type of resources to be able to take care of her siblings. And that's unfortunately the way a lot of states are set up. So look at nonprofits that work with these populations, and just give them a call. They are looking for volunteers everywhere, every single day. There's not enough people, not enough hands that are supporting you know, these populations in our system. So for everybody, you know, you're reaching out, you're reaching in. We need to do more than just sitting and listening and empathizing. We got to take it a step further, and there needs to be a call to action, you know? So I'm going to renege or take back what I said when I said, I don't know how you're surviving. I think for me, the realization just came that you're surviving because you have a purpose. You know what I mean? I'm of the belief that purpose is the key to the cure, you know, for most mental dis-ease. Having a sense of purpose setting goals, and all of your actions, all of your steps in recovery are towards that purpose. That's what keeps us all alive and all connected, you know? So I commend you on what you've described for us as your recovery process, starting with making the decision I'm going to create instead of destroy, starting with making the decision to talk to the mental health therapist through EAP, making the decision to spread that knowledge, and then to continue to encourage and build your community and create these safe spaces and conversations to where people, your followers, can reach out to you. I want to shift to you talking about what you're doing now in terms of business, in terms of philanthropy. I know you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast you've got a clothing line, you've got an adult product coming out, or a product line coming out. Can you kind of give them an idea of what you're doing right now, that's your success story?
Yeah, so I kind of want to touch back on what you said about having a purpose. With having a purpose, we tend to keep ourselves busy.
Yeah.
With keeping ourselves busy, we never take that time to understand how we're feeling or what we're dealing with. So that can create a lot of mental illness as well, like anxiety and stress and depression.
Yeah.
And so I have to remind you guys, it's okay to take that day off or take those 2 days off to work on yourself. It's called the self-help day. Take that day and work on yourself. Whether it's soaking in the bath, getting your nails done, getting a haircut, just getting ready for the day. Give yourself that love. Give yourself that self-love, because we tend to lose it when we become so busy. Like I said, I'm working on all these projects.
Yeah.
They're getting me out of the funk that I was in because I'm keeping myself busy, but I still take those days.
Yeah.
So
Me
right
too.
now,
Me too.
Yeah. So right now, like she said, I'm in the process of relaunching my clothing line again, as well as starting a online adult fantasy store.
What's the name of the clothing line?
It's going to be the swear word.
The swear word.
The swear word.
Love it. Love it. And we get to choose whichever swear word it is, or
no, that's it. It's the swearword.com.
Swear word.
Yep. That's where it's going to be, but that's going to be both lines. I'm going to have an adult section for on the swearword.com, as well as a clothing section. So I've been working on that. It has been a struggle. I'm not going to lie, because when you're doing everything on your own, you want everything so perfect. And you have to realize, like, sometimes you need that help.
Right.
And a lot of times you don't realize that a lot of your friends are willing to help you. Even people you don't know are your biggest supporters. So if you need that help, reach out. Let your friends know what you're starting or what you got going on, because all you need is 10 friends to be there to really support you and promote your business and get the word out there. With me, I had someone ask me, do you think people are buying your clothes because they like your product, or do you think they're buying your clothes because they genuinely mess with you? And I was like, you know what? A lot of times, like, my friends would tell me, you know what, just send whatever, here's the money, and I'll love it. And just to get that love from those people, you start to realize, like, dang, you know what, they're supporting you because they genuinely care for you, not because they like your product. Well, they like the product too, but but they really care for you, and those are the people that you need to keep around. And those are the people you need to surround yourself with. They may not be successful, but they're going to make sure that you are. And so if you can be successful and bring them up with you, why not?
Love it. And, I also want to point out that I am rocking the Bodak Yellow Inner Circle UNNI tee. And I remember asking you before, being a celebrity stylist and everything, how on point I was, with the UNNI swag. And can you just let them know, because I want to make sure that they understand, that I'm sitting here with a real a real celebrity stylist, and you're going to hear what a real celebrity stylist thinks about the Inner Circle UNNI logo tee.
I love it. I would love to see it on a hat.
That girl good.
I would love to see it on a hat.
Yeah.
But the quality of her shirt, it's really nice material. I'm looking at it, it's pretty thick. And most people like the thin, soft, see-through. But I like this. It's getting cold, so it's a little warm, soft, and it's not too big.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's pretty much, I should have just started with that and ended with that. That's all you need to know is that I'm on point. I'm celebrity status, you know what I mean? So, yeah, Gucci, one of my favorites, Givenchy. If you want to collab, get a little UNNI, a little U in an Inner Circle, we can do that. But, no, I appreciate you giving love to the UNNI brand. If somebody wants to continue this conversation with you, and I highly recommend you follow this guy on IG. I've seen some of your lives. I think that you are hilarious. I think that you are compassionate, and you've got so much drip, so much sauce. I love it. So for somebody to link up with you and continue the conversation, how would they do that?
Well, my inbox is always open. So if you guys are struggling with reaching out to somebody because they know you and you don't want them to spread your secrets or whatever. Anytime someone comes to me, it's confidentiality. I don't tell anybody whatever you're going through because that's your business. And I feel like if you want somebody to know, you would tell them. And that's just how I've always been. But you guys can reach me at Anthony Ray Official on IG or theswearword.com as soon as that launches. Yes. And my inbox is always open. So if you guys are struggling with something, if you guys don't know where to seek help, you can always reach out. If I don't know where to seek help or how to help you, I'm going to find a way and I'm going to reach out to somebody who may, and I'm going to figure it out for you guys. So don't feel like you're alone. You're not alone. There's so many people who are dealing with what you're going through. And there's CEOs who deal with mental illness, but you will never know because they're on the right medication or they seeked help. So don't feel like you're not normal because that's what I always told myself. It's like, I just want to be normal. Yeah. But in reality, I am normal. It's just not the normal I'm used to. It's something that you got to get used to.
Right.
So I say reach out. If I can't help you, believe I'm going to figure out a way to. So just reach out, Anthony Ray Official on IG.
Somebody say reach. And you know what? I haven't done this in a while, and so I'm going to do this. I haven't done this in a while. Everybody knows that, 90s hip hop, anytime somebody says something, I got a whole playlist in my head.
Me too.
And when you said you were not alone, I thought, another day has gone. I'm still alone. And if you want me to continue, okay, inbox me at UNNI.podcast on IG. All right.
And her partner got vocals, so she might have to do a duet.
Yeah. No, and we're actually coming out with another song in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. But man, Anthony, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, for coming in the studio at GTV Radio. Got to give a mad shout out to DJ Prenup at GTV Radio. Make sure that you guys are following at GTV Radio on IG. Got to give a shout out to Frequency Jewelry. I'm always, and today I want to give tribute to the Tiger's Eye today because, I feel like we came in and we did the damn thing with the podcast and I got all my crystals and everything like that. That's giving me so much positive energy. So Frequency Jewelry, that's free, Free, Quincy Jewelry. Look that up on IG. Got to give a shout out to Mental Health News Radio Network and irelate.org. That's IREL, the number 8.org/UNNI/ for some good peer support. So, man, thank you for joining the team. And we're going to check you guys out pretty soon. Next time.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed being part of your podcast, and I look forward to coming back.
Yes, sir.